let's talk about Pavlova. Welcome back to Sprung On Food. I'm your host, Kae Sprung. This season, we're talking about favorite foods, the history behind it, and the role it plays in the world today. Joining me today is actor and writer David Crabb. David, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk about this very high-calorie dessert.
Oh, okay. Well, all nutritional details aside, I'm very excited to talk to you about Pavlova, which is your favorite food, which is very exciting. You might be the first person that I've met that has announced that to be their favorite food. So I have to know, what makes this your favorite?
Oh my God, even picking my favorite food for you was like just a dark spiritual struggle. I went through so many lists because there's so many foods I like. I have a sweet tooth, and I knew that a large part of my list would be sweet stuff. But the interesting thing about me, and we'll get into this, was that it was funny how many of the foods I wanted to talk about were connected to experiences or people that made them or places I loved. So it really, even the process of planning to do this made me think so much about God, I have some real muscle memory, stuff connected to this food. And Pavlova is a food that I love the taste of. I love a meringue. I love any kind of pudding or custard. When I was little, growing up in Texas, my grandmother Saucy made me this banana pudding that had a meringue on top that would bake with Nilla wafers in it. And then later I discovered an Eaten mess. When I was living in New York, there was a place that had an Eaten mess, which is delicious, and trifle. So everything in that world I've always loved. But over the pandemic, a friend of mine who is Irish and loves cooking, they were one of the few people that we were seeing. She would bake and bring over at our couples meetup dinner night, this homemade Pavlova. And I had never had it before. And I was like, this is the fusion of all the meringue custardy things I've always loved. And it is solace in a really dark, September 2020 moment. And I think Pavlova, I love the taste, but I think it connects in so many other ways. It makes me feel very hearthy for me. You know what I mean? And I was like, oh, this is it. I found her.
Game over. Yeah, it was kissing a bunch of frogs to find that prince. And are there any places that you've found that you can get it? Have you ever tried to make it yourself? How do you now get your fix if you need that Pavlova?
My friend will still make it when we get together.
Okay.
Our pandemic get-togethers were weekly. I'm immunosuppressed, so we were kind of in deep hiding for the first year before we realized it wouldn't be the end of the world if I was to have COVID, especially once we had boosters and things. So it was weekly. I was having she wouldn't make it every time, but every 2 or 3 weeks I was having Pavlova, 2 variations, a very traditional fruit one with a delicious custard. And then she would make this one that was salted caramel and chocolate, a very chocolate saltier version of Pavlova. So not only was I getting Pavlova and loving it, I was obsessed with well, what am I going to get? It was Christmas every 2-3 weeks. Which one is she bringing?
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. Since then I have had, I'm not going to name it because it's rude. I have ordered the Pavlova at one place in Los Angeles, and I literally, I was going to just throw my napkin down and say, absolutely not.
Oh, no.
I was like, no, it wasn't right. It felt.
Yeah, what was wrong with it? And we won't name names. That's fine. But
the thing about Pavlova, if you've never had it, it has a lot of texture happening. And a really traditional one can kind of have that trifle vibe to it. The difference, though, if a trifle can be a meringue, a custard, a lot of pudding. There can be a cake element to trifle. The thing that a trifle doesn't have that a Pavlova has is the crunch of a properly baked meringue, right? That kind of icy, crunchy. It's not really crispy, but it's a different textural element. And I felt this place that I went did not do that, because I don't think a good Pavlova is very let's make it, we'll batch it out, and then someone will eat it in 2 or 3 hours. I don't think it's made to survive that way. So I don't know. I'd love to find a place that had it and experiment with ordering it again. But for now, it's and I kind of like that about it. I like that it's this delicious thing that comes from this person I love, and I can have it once in a blue moon. And then in the meantime, look, there's great banana puddings at places I go. I can get a good trifle.
Yeah.
But Pavlova is there waiting.
Yeah.
she's good over there. She'll come back.
Sure. No, I
Yeah.
I like that a lot, especially too. Well, one, it came from a loved one who put
Mm.
their care into it, so it was made with love, and maybe also that's why it tastes extra delicious. And then it is technically not the kind of thing that needs to be consumed on a daily basis. So it can be that thing that we look forward to when it does arrive and make its appearance and not like have to go out searching for it. I mean, one day, who knows, maybe they will teach you how they make it and pass the torch. Do you cook? Do you enjoy cooking and baking or
I enjoy cooking. I can cook a really good savory meal. Like a
okay.
few Christmases ago, I told everyone that I wanted to make beef bourguignon,
Mm,
and I had never made it, and I did a pretty good job. And if I
okay.
go for savory, I can do it. Baking,
Mm,
I watched the Great British Bake Off. I love that
okay.
show.
Yes.
There's a math and a precision to it. It's so much more about like texture than just I made this really deliciously seasoned pasta beef slop. Oh God, I'm
Okay.
so downplaying my beef bourguignon. But you know what I mean? It feels like there's something precise about something like a meringue,
Hmm.
and I find that I don't have the patience for that. I did try to make even my grandmother's banana pudding years ago, and I just even a simple meringue, I was like, I hate doing this. I don't like
Okay.
it.
Yes. Well, we don't want to make you forced to do anything that it might take away from the experience and the end result. So we will just keep it at that, the nice dish that appears every few weeks or so.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
of course, to better understand and appreciate our food, we have to know where it came from. Picture this, a dessert so airy it could float right off the plate, crisp on the outside, soft like a cloud inside, and crowned with a halo of whipped cream and fruit. Strawberries, kiwi, passion fruit, mango, whatever you can dream up, really. It's elegant, showy, and sort of feels like summer in dessert form. Say hello to Pavlova, a dish so beloved that it sparked nearly a century of rivalry between two nations that both claim to have invented it. Is it from Australia? Is it from New Zealand? Let's take a look at how a Russian ballerina inspired it, how the recipe evolved, and how it became a symbol of national pride and maybe a touch of culinary one-upsmanship. It's the late 1920s. The world is still shaking off the First World War. Jazz is sweeping through dance halls, and across the southern hemisphere, a Russian ballerina is floating through theaters. Her name? Anna Pavlova. When Anna toured Australia and New Zealand in 1926 and again in 1929, she was a sensation. Critics described her as light as air, her tutu fluttering like a cloud. And somewhere in one of those hotel kitchens or home kitchens, a cook looked at her and thought, that's what dessert should be like. They didn't want to bake something heavy or rich. They wanted something graceful, airy, sweet, but light, like sugar turned into a cloud. And that spark of inspiration, whether born in Wellington or Perth, gave us one of the most hotly debated desserts, the pavlova. David, so far, our pavlova is inspired by a majestic ballerina. Is there someone, maybe in modern time or throughout history, that you admire, that you would choose to inspire a dish? And if so, what would that dish be?
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, I just learned so much about a dessert. That
Oh,
is
okay. Well,
amazing.
there's more to go. Yes.
Oh my God, that's fascinating. I mean, God, who would inspire a dessert? That is such an interesting that triggers all the sensory stuff in my brain trying to build those bridges. I don't know. Maybe this is so cheesy, but bear with me. My
Yeah.
husband, who I've been with for 20 years, he's one of the sweetest men I've ever, oh God, I just heard myself, pun not intended. He's one of the sweetest dudes
Ah.
ever. And he's like very hearty and homey. He's like very much a
Mm.
caregiver. And I think if there was going to be like some sort of dish based after him, I think it would be like one thing he loves are Butterfingers. And like as a
Ooh.
surprise, sometimes I'll just buy a Butterfinger at the gas station and pop it in the
Oh.
fridge and it'll just be there. And I've always thought, oh my God, a Butterfinger, like some kind of chocolate peanut butter dessert with Butterfinger baked into it. I don't know how
Yes.
Butterfinger bakes, but I'd be willing to try. Maybe
Yes.
that, maybe that. His name is Jack, and maybe Jack would have some sort of very hearty, chocolatey Butterfinger that sounds very southern and trashy, but I'm here for it.
No, I love it. I'm obsessed with it. And please, I will volunteer to help come up with something that is this Jeff dessert spectacular. It sounds Amazing. I mean, peanut butter and chocolate, that is an award-winning combination. Butterfingers, classic. This sounds great.
So fantastic. It also sounds like one of those things that woman, the very successful woman that has the cooking show where she just takes pre-packaged food and kind of mashes them into different molds. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, we'll find
Okay.
out. Well,
Yes,
you would
please share
be
this offline. Yes.
you doing what you do. She just takes like a can of cranberries, dumps it into a mold frozen, slices it in the shape of a crown, covers it in whipped cream and cherries, and calls it like 4th of July Jubilee. And it's literally just kind of a bunch of prepackaged foods she
Okay.
arranges into the shape of something kind of
Oh
regal.
my.
You'll love her. We'll figure it out.
Okay. Okay. So maybe there's a collaboration between all of us in the works. I don't know. But if so, it happened here first.
Great.
Well, if you've never eaten pavlova, let's set the stage. At first glance, it looks kind of like a cake, circular, topped with fruit and cream, but bite into it and it's not cake at all. The exterior shatters delicately, revealing an interior that's soft, almost marshmallowy and cloud-like. The magic texture comes from whipped egg whites and sugar, stabilized with a bit of cornstarch and acid, vinegar or cream of tartar, then baked low and slow. Once cold, it's topped with billows of whipped cream and fresh fruit, usually something bright and juicy like strawberries, passion fruit, or kiwi. Unlike the meringue cookies of France, pavlova isn't dry or crunchy throughout. It's got contrast. Crisp outside, pillowy inside, and that makes it both delicate and decadent. But before we get into the sugar wars between Australia and New Zealand, we need to take a step back to Vienna. Picture candlelit salons, lace tablecloths, and people in powdered wigs indulging in confections that look more like architectural models than desserts. Before the pavlova became the dessert equivalent of a Southern Hemisphere celebrity, there was another diva of the dessert world, the Spanische Windtorte, or Spanish wind cake. David, are you familiar with this dessert?
Did you just say a Spanish wind cake?
Yes.
I mean, I feel like having a case of the Spanish winds is something that would make me not want to eat the cake. But tell me about the Spanish wind cake.
Well, I will, but I would be remiss if, as such a talented improviser as yourself, I didn't ask you to maybe come up with what you think it looks like, tastes like, how it's served. I would love to see what you think.
This is so interesting because it actually connects kind of to a very late answer I had to. It was funny, the question you just asked me about what dessert or what person might inspire a food. Years ago, I was a bartender at a comedy bar in the East Village called Rafifi. And it was where a bunch of early comedians came up. And at the end of a very long shift in my late 20s, my friends would come to the bar and just sit with me, and I would not charge 2 or 3 of them. But I started coming up with this contest where I would make cocktails based on names that they gave me. And most of them were celebrity names, right? So one time, I think the most heinous thing that I ever made was called, forgive me, but it was called John Wayne's Bunghole. And
Okay.
it was a really cheap scotch and Coke on ice with a spoonful of Worcestershire sauce mixed in. And then I would break a cigarette and crumble tobacco on the top of it, throw in a cherry and a straw, and it would be a free drink. And if you drank it, I would get you your next drink free. So some of them were awful. Some of them were beautiful. I think a Spanish wind cake would probably be, my brain is going to some sort of flan type substance, like
Okay.
a sort of gelatinous, mealy, moist cake. Is it
Okay.
flan adjacent?
Well, if you're tapping out, I'm happy to tell you. But I like the visual imagery I just got in my mind's eye of this gelatinous wibbly wobbly cake. I think that's fun.
Yeah.
I'll let you in on a little bit more of it.
Right.
Despite the name, it wasn't Spanish at all. The Spanish was a nod maybe to the Habsburg Empire ties with Spain. It was pure Austrian precision, gorgeous to look at, nerve-wracking to make. First appearing in late 18th century Viennese cookbooks, the Windtorte was a sculptural meringue. Bakers would pipe concentric rings of sweet wind, which is the poetic term for whipped egg white foam, into tall, hollow walls, bake them slowly until crisp, then fill the center with whipped cream and fresh berries. Sometimes it even had a delicate meringue lid perched on top like a crown. It wasn't a dessert for anyone hoping to make it ahead. The structure was so delicate that the cream had to be spooned in moments before serving or the whole thing would collapse. Still, it was a showstopper, a high society dessert meant to dazzle in the salons of Vienna. Food historians now point to the Spanische Windtorte as one of the earliest known ancestors to the Pavlova, part of a long European lineage of meringue and cream tortes. Researchers have traced the Pavlova's DNA back through Central Europe, where desserts, made almost entirely of baked meringue, were already being crafted centuries before Anna Pavlova ever danced across the stage. And the connection makes sense. Both desserts share the same essential building blocks: a crisp meringue exterior, a soft creamy center, and fresh fruit. But the Pavlova, like a true modern star, simplified the production, softened the interior with cornstarch, and gave the concept a distinctly down-under accent. Where the Windtorte was an architectural and aristocratic dessert, the Pavlova became approachable. Still, it's hard not to see the Spanische Windtorte as the OG meringue dessert, the one who walked so Pavlova could dance. There were also other meringue and cream desserts across Central Europe and Britain, so by the time cooks in Australia and New Zealand were experimenting in the 1920s, they were drawing from a well-established meringue tradition. What made their version distinct was the cornstarch. It was a secret ingredient that gave Pavlova its marshmallowy interior, preventing the sugar and egg whites from drying out completely. And where did that idea come from? David, do you have any guess where that idea of adding cornstarch may have come from? And you can do wrong answers only if you want.
I mean, you asked me earlier about cooking, and I told you, like, baking, anything in this world, like, I don't even know what cornstarch does. Like, you said cornstarch,
Okay.
and I caught myself saying, oh, of course. I'm like, David, that didn't solve anything for you. You have no idea what that means. Okay. It's funny, you describing the Spanish wind cake and the lid and everything. It really took me back to when I was like 5 or 6. It was my birthday, and I read about a baked Alaska in a children's book. I think it might have been one of those like Judy Blume books. I don't remember, but it was like a kid's book.
Really?
And I remember my mom was like a very busy single mom that worked like 4 jobs in the mall. And she's like, what do you want me to make for your birthday? And I think she expected like a chocolate cake. And I was like, I want to bake Alaska. And I still remember to this day, my mom, like, just in the kitchen, taking tray after tray of like melted ice cream, like just puddles out of the oven, just with a rag, being like, okay, I'm going to try it again. I'm going to try it again. So it's so funny. The Spanish wind cake made me think about that whole like cold, hot, like center thing. It's just with a lid. It's crazy.
Yeah. And especially with that too, you have this very crispy product where essentially all of the moisture has been pulled out of it. And then you're introducing this very kind of creamy situation. So it's only a matter of time until that whole thing's kind of coming down. So
It
yeah,
falls apart.
it sounds like a
Literally, yeah.
stressful thing. Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah, my mom
yeah,
would have thought to add cornstarch, though. I bet she would have had that bright idea. I bet.
yes,
I doubt it was
exactly.
her.
Okay, well, but hey, we can go. That could be our wrong answer only. Your mom came up with it. Perfect.
Sounds like an insult. Who came up with cornstarch? Your mom.
Your mom. Well, here we're saying it in a very complimentary way. We'll say your mother. Your mother. Or maybe that's something too. Don't people say that too?
Yeah, I feel like if we're talking about any dessert this fancy, no one's mom makes it. Someone's mother makes a pavlova.
Well, yes, exactly. Well, I shall answer our questions aside from your mother. It was possibly from a recipe pamphlet from the Maizena brand of cornstarch distributed around that time across Australia and New Zealand. Use our product, it'll make your baked goods better. A perfect example of industrial food marketing shaping culinary history. And if this concept of marketing on labels sounds familiar, you might recognize it from the history of chocolate chip cookies and the history of tres leches cake. And if not, you can check out those episodes on YouTube or available wherever you get your podcasts. So yes, the name may honor a Russian ballerina, but the DNA of Pavlova runs through European kitchens, colonial trade, and a whole lot of cross-cultural baking ingenuity. David, are there any, they don't have to be baking because we know how you are with baking, but are there any recipes from food labels or packaging that you've ever used or tried?
Oh my gosh. Not many that I've used or tried, but as a kid growing up in Texas, so many that I've eaten. Like
okay.
Well, just especially with like a single mom, like we had so much, hamburger helper, for example, would even come with the directions, but with a little bit like to spicing it up, try grilled onions in
Ooh.
it, like that. And then there was also that trend. I mean, maybe this still happens. It feels so depression era to me, but there's still the thing that I remember my friends' moms and like my grandmother would, on the back of like a box of Ritz crackers, there would be
Uh-huh.
like a whole recipe for like a Ritz crust, for like a Ritz pie. And
Yes.
I remember even when I was little being like, I don't think that's right. Like little snobby me that was gonna love Pavlova, was like, "Mm, no." But yeah, like I think all those recipes are fascinating.
It's very clever because if somebody's already buying the product, it then allows you to kind of imaginate, oh boy, that's not a word. Imagine yeah, it sounds like something that would be in Wicked, but it would allow you to kind of think of a second use for it or another life for it,
Yeah.
encourage you to buy a second one if the recipe calls for more than you already have at that point. So
Yeah.
it's very clever marketing, I think, if nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, to this day, I recently saw a box of vanilla wafers, and the recipe on the back was for probably something very close to my grandmother's banana pudding. So yeah, it's really
Hmm.
smart. You go because you need vanilla wafers because your grandson eats them. But wait, if
Sure.
I make this, I need this whole box for the pudding. So
Uh-huh.
let me get two boxes. And
Exactly.
there we
That's how
are.
they get us. So, who dreamed up this dessert creation in Pavlova's honor? Few culinary feuds have lasted this long or been fought with such friendly ferocity as the Pavlova War between Australia and New Zealand. We're about to enter our mind's eye version of Judge Judy's courtroom. The cases are real, the recipes are disputed, and someone's national pride is about to deflate. Today's case: New Zealand versus Australia, the people versus Pavlova. Let's start with New Zealand's case. According to research, the earliest known recipes for something called pavlova appeared in New Zealand cookbooks in the late 1920s and early 1930s. One recipe appeared in the Rangiora Mother's Union Cookery book in 1933. I'm sure you're familiar. A meringue-based pavlova cake. The Oxford English Dictionary even cites a pavlova recipe printed in New Zealand around 1927. While that early version might not have been exactly the modern pavlova, it shows that Kiwis were already using the name, linking it directly to Anna Pavlova's tour. Now, let's hear from the other side, Australia. A chef named Herbert Burt Saxey at the Esplanade Hotel in Perth claimed he invented the pavlova in 1935, supposedly creating it to honor the ballerina after her visit. Australian papers ran with that claim, and the dessert became a star in women's magazines like the Australian Women's Weekly through the 1930s and 40s. So here's the dilemma. New Zealand seems to have used the name first, while Australia seems to have popularized the dessert form we recognize today. Modern historians argue that the evidence tilts toward New Zealand, but the broader truth may be that pavlova wasn't so much invented as evolved. David, if you are judging this case, how are you ruling?
I'm ruling for Australia. Now, I'm not ruling on
Mhm.
Australia based on the facts, which
Okay.
because it is Judge Judy's court after all. None of it's
Sure.
real.
Okay.
I love Australia, and this is fascinating for me to hear from you that this dessert, which is my favorite dessert, comes from literally it would be my dream place to retire to move to. I I went with there's a storytelling show called The Moth, and I used to host for them, and we went to Australia, and I got to live in Australia for a month, and it was
Wow.
probably one of my favorite months of my life. And two of those weeks were in Sydney, and two were in Melbourne, and I loved it. I love the people, I love the coffee, I love the vibe, I love the baked goods, like a
Mhm.
cafe in Australia. So I'm picking Australia out of kind of like a bias, even
Yeah.
though it does sound like the evidence supports New Zealand. I also want to say I wrote it down. Did you say that that man's name was Herbert Burt Paxi?
A Saxy.
That is the craziest name. What a crazy, wonderful name. Herbert.
Okay, I was like, you know him? Okay, okay, okay. You just
He's my
enjoyed
great
it.
great uncle. No,
Oh my God, it all makes sense
it all
now.
ties.
Oh, you just enjoy the sound of his name?
I, as an improviser and sketch comedian who wears a lot of stupid wigs and makes up voices and people, I get a lot
Okay.
of inspiration. Again, it's that weird synesthesia way that my brain can work with like
Yeah.
a color is a sound, a texture is a like And when I think of that name, Herbert Burt Saxe,
Yeah.
I just need a wig. Like I need to become him
Oh,
immediately.
and what is he like?
Oh well, Herbert Burt Paxi, he sounds like he has a frog in his throat. He never has a good night's sleep, but he's very excited about the day ahead because there's discoveries to make. Apparently, he's a little bit Southern too. Yeah, I think that's
Yes.
Herbert.
Okay. Amazing. We have met him, everybody. You have just met Burt Saxe in the flesh, or the ghost of. This is amazing. Okay,
Yep, and
please, if you
he's off to H&R Block to start his shift now. Yeah,
okay. Ooh, I like this whole development. If you ever play this man and have video, please share it with me.
I will. I'll write a whole sketch about this man eating a banana pudding. I'll make sure you get it.
I'm so excited. Okay. Well, by the mid 20th century, Pavlova had become the it dessert of celebration across both nations. In Australia and New Zealand, no Christmas, wedding, or backyard barbecue felt complete without it. It suited the southern climate, light, fruity, perfect for summer. Recipes spread in cookbooks, homemaker magazines, radio cooking shows, and everyone had a family recipe that they swore was the best. As refrigeration became more accessible and fruit imports increased, toppings got fancier. Berries, mango, banana, passion fruit pulp, and the ever-symbolic kiwi, which New Zealanders practically trademarked as their national fruit. So when it lands on a pavlova, it's not just garnish, it's a flag. Restaurants caught on too. Pavlova appeared on menus from suburban diners to fine dining rooms. Some chefs went minimalist with classic cream and fruit topping. Others turned it into edible architecture, stacked pavlova chocolate swirl bases, and mini versions served in individual sizes. Today, pavlova has outgrown its national little fight and found its way into kitchens around the world. In both New Zealand and Australia, pavlova remains a national icon. You'll find it in tourism campaigns and at every summer gathering. David, Pavlova, we see is synonymous with all of these different celebratory and also everyday events in both New Zealand and Australia. What do you think is the US version of this kind of food item?
Oh, right. It's so funny. I thought you were about to say, where in the US do you see it? And I would be like, nowhere. Where's the Pavlova?
Yeah, not enough places. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like, oh God, I like pie. I feel like if I go to some sort of like, because I wanted to say like, like ice cream or like a cake, but those all feel like people like tend towards like a store-bought thing. I feel like if it's going to be something someone made, and who knows, maybe in those cultures at these barbecues and events, maybe because Pavlova is so beloved there, maybe you could just buy a Pavlova at like the grocery store. Again, I don't know how that keeps and travels, but yeah, I guess like pie. I feel like and especially in the summer, it's hot. Like people bring little like fruit pies.
Yeah, and it's very non-season specific too. I think yes, a lot of people might think summertime is a great time for that, but it's very like autumnal too, especially in the winter with different holidays. Springtime, like what is it? National Pie Days in the spring. It's in March. I feel
like cobblers are picking up too. I feel like the last couple summers, I feel like more people are bringing cobblers, which I feel like is almost just like a necessity. It's like, I don't have time to make a pie crust, and I didn't get one, but I've got a baking dish.
Yes. It's like a foolproof. A foolproof version of pie, but it still tastes delicious. You close your eyes, you don't know the difference.
You don't know the difference. Yeah. Even though some cobblers do have that great like kind of sugar crumble thing on top, but I feel like pies often don't have. I do love that.
Okay. All right. Yes. Shout out to cobblers. But yeah, pie. That's excellent. Yes. Gold star for that one. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, you didn't know we were handing out gold stars today, and you got.
I don't know. I mean, I'm excited to see what I get at the end of this. I really. Oh boy,
let's baby. Yeah, let's not put the bar too high. We've already got our gold star, but stay tuned. Well, of course, the rivalry never dies. Every few years, a new article reignites the debate. Who really invented the Pavlova? And both countries politely refuse to back down. What makes Pavlova so enduring isn't just its taste, it's what it represents. A European tradition reborn in the Southern Hemisphere, flavored by local fruit, wrapped in colonial history, and named for a woman who danced like a dream. No matter who made it first, pavlova belongs to the cooks who keep reinventing it, the families who pass it down, the pastry chefs who plate it now, and the nations who keep claiming it with a wink. Because if there's one truth in the great pavlova debate, it's this. It takes a lot of air to make something this light and a lot of pride to keep it floating for nearly a century. David, what do you think about the backstory of pavlova?
It's so clear to me that pavlova, for all the ways I enjoy looking at it and eating it, like the idea that it comes from a ballerina is just, it's like, duh. It just feels so, of course it does, right? Like it's decadent and sweet. And I mean, God bless anyone that had it on a daily basis. God bless your arteries. But it has that feeling of like lightness that is, I think it's what I like about it.
And then I think too, in my mind a little bit, I can see kind of, a very abstract resemblance of the pavlova with like a tutu, and then it's like, it's elegant, but it's simple. It's just interesting how people can really draw inspiration from literally everyday things, people, places, whatever. And and her name shall live on too through this dessert. It's not a bad way to let your name travel, I think.
No, it isn't. And I love that it exists. It kind of made me, as much as I love the pavlovas that I know, which are limited to just a few, I wish I lived in a place like Australia or New Zealand where they're more prominent, because I'm sure there's so many variations. And I also wonder, in those cultures where pavlova as like a homemade sweet is so popular, I would think that there is some store-bought variation. So anyway, all this information about the popularity of it in these other places has blown my mind about like, oh no, I want to taste all the pavlova things.
Okay, so here's what I think you need to do. You need to book a one-way ticket and go and start doing a tour of pavlovas. Knock on some doors, shake some hands, kiss some babies, get yourself invited to some of these backyard barbecue events. You can taste some of these homemade ones. Maybe travel around, see what different people are doing, different neighborhoods, and then into different nations and see. And then maybe you can decide for everybody who's really knocking it out of all biases aside already.
Yeah.
Who really takes the not cake but pavlova in this whole debate, and who's the best? So
who wins? And I love that you said, this might have just been a little slip, but you said a one-way ticket. Like, I don't think I'm coming back. Like, I think,
okay, fair enough.
I mean, if I'm surrounded by Australian and New Zealand people with coffee served at that level, with pavlovas willy-nilly left and right, I'm not coming back to America.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I wanted you to do the one way only so that you could you didn't have any constraints. You didn't have to feel rushed to get your research, because research has no bounds. It takes the amount of time that it takes. So I wanted you to be free about that.
I stay a month. I get in 2 or 3 pavlovas a day. I come back with a raging case of diabetes, and then I just try and move on with life.
Just surf it off. It's okay.
Surf it off.
Yeah. Well, our lovely dessert, believe it or not, has made its way into some pop culture moments. In 1994, New Zealand released a pavlova stamp with a blue sky background and a dome-shaped pavlova topped with kiwi. In 2018, Norwegians broke a pavlova world record by baking one that surpassed an earlier New Zealand size. There were some critics that said that this version wasn't really a pavlova because it's more flat in stature. Let's let them sort that out. David, is it pavlova or not aside, do you want to venture a guess of how big this was? And you can guess in either square feet or square meters.
I'm going to say 9 square meters.
9 square meters. Okay. Well, I will say by Price is Right rules, you would win. But if we're doing square meters, it was actually 85.
What?
And if we're doing feet, it was 915 square feet. So bigger than an average New York City apartment.
No, I don't want to eat. I don't even want to. That's too much pavlova handled by too many hands in too many places. Spread. I mean, what was it served on? Was it on a floor on the photo?
No. So they had a multitude of like folding tables. And as you had said, it's in kind of like sheets of it, if you will. And then kind of like constructed together, as opposed to what I think would be way more romantic is just one very large, big, singular piece.
Or a
Yeah.
tiered, like, yeah, that's just a
Mm,
Pavlova that, like, congrats to them that they set a record for size.
sure.
I would love some feedback from boots on the ground people in the room on how good that Pavlova tasted.
Right. It may have been more for the spectacle, not so much about
Mhm.
flavor. They were chefs who created it, so we'll hopefully give them the
Okay.
benefit of the doubt that maybe it
Okay,
was
great.
actually very. And I think it was the chefs and culinary students that were doing it. So we're gonna
Okay.
hope that they were actually taking it seriously. But I think in terms of presentation, neither Australia nor New Zealand were very thrilled about it. Well, there's also a book titled The Half-Gallon Quarter-Acre Pavlova Paradise from 1972 by Austin Mitchell. It's a satirical take on New Zealand life and uses Pavlova in its title as almost a cultural shorthand. There's a season 3, episode 17, Pavlova, from the beloved Australian show Bluey. In that episode, Mom won't let Bingo have Pavlova, so the kids find a way by playing a game of cafe in the kitchen. Speaking of shows, if you're a Real Housewives of New York City fan like myself, you might remember season 15, episode 4, where cast member Jenna Lyons talks an awful lot about the Pavlova she's going to make for the ladies' Sag Harbor dinner. Everyone is in love with her dish until the moment is spoiled by a prank involving a fake cockroach placed in the dessert. And at Benelong, a high-end Sydney restaurant inside the Sydney Opera House, there's a Benelong Pavlova sold as a signature dessert. They've made tens of thousands of them, and it's part of their identity as a landmark restaurant. David, are there any other pop cultural moments that you can think of, or any final words that you have about your favorite food?
No, I mean, I I I long to eat it again now because my dear friends, they're a couple from Scotland and Ireland. They've recently just moved back to Ireland and they'll visit, but a Pavlova from my friend Kira is very far down the calendar. Like there's not one coming for quite a spell.
Oh,
So
okay.
I guess my final thoughts are, I take for granted sometimes that I live in Los Angeles and I can find many, many foods. So I think I'm gonna pound the pavement and I'm gonna find a good Pavlova here and eat it to my heart's content. Well, within reason, but I'm gonna do
Sure.
it. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. The discovery locally first. Let's see what we
Yes.
can find.
Yeah.
We'll start putting out that web, seeing, and I know some chefs out there, so let's see what we can do. We gotta feed you, is what I'm
Let me
saying.
know. I would love that because that plane ticket is very expensive.
Sure, sure, sure. So in the meantime,
Yeah.
see what we can do locally, and then we
Yeah.
can have something on the horizon.
That's great. Oh my God. I love that you're gonna be my like assistant detective on this case. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Absolutely. That is your second prize. You got your gold star, and that's your second prize.
Great, great.
Okay.
I'll send you an email with all the data, the
Yes.
intel that I have soon.
Perfect. Please follow up with that.
Will.
David, thank you so much for sharing your love of Pavlova and helping me to tell its story.
Of course. It was so nice talking to you, and I'm so happy now that I have a friend to help me find my favorite dessert in this world.
Thanks for watching. You can find links and more info in the description below. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. See you next time.